The next presentation is by Professor D.S.Withane. He is a professor of strategic studies at the Faculty of Defense Studies at the KDU and also emeritus professor of strategic management in the University of Windsor, Ontario, Canada. His research interests are in strategic studies, security studies, business studies, strategy and policy, entrepreneurship, international business. Professor Withane has published 2 books and 42 articles in referred international journals such as Organization Studies, Canadian Journal of Administrative Sciences, Entrepreneurial Culture, Journal of Decision, Long Range Planning, and Journal of Development Studies. He is going to speak on the missing link in joint warfare practices, a conceptual analysis of military transformation. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, for your kind introduction. Now, my paper is a little bit different from the 3 or 4 papers already presented. This is a conceptual paper basically looking at the military transformation over the last several decades. So, I would like to start with a very short introduction. What do you mean by joint operations? Late 20th century and the early 21st century, this has been a major topic among researchers and practitioners as well. The phenomenon of joint operations, we can say, started with a European experience, applied to the American context, and it came to World War I, not with fully fledged joint operation. Dardanelles campaign is a good one, and World War II, lightning war, and Blitzkrieg tactics came from Germany, and invasion of Normandy represented the most complex joint operations. But they were in the beginning stages. They didn't have much of an idea about the jointness in operations. What do you mean by jointness? Jointness means Army, Navy, and space facilities. If you look at the literature review, I'll go to a very short literature review comparing the schools of thought. Jomini, a well-known researcher in this area, argued that there should be amphibious warfare. Both land and sea should be together. Kobe, linkages between land and sea, again specified and supported. Clausewitz ignored the naval warfare in his discussions. Mahen, he had a passing attention to naval power. Dohet argued that there should be an independent air power, not linked with sea and land. And recently, Cohen discussed very interestingly the importance of jointness and also some criticism saying that Germany's lightning warfare was not a fully fledged joint operation. And Murray, looking at the Gulf War and others in the recent past, argued about the importance. Late 20th century phenomenon of jointness, I would go through very quickly because it's a conceptual presentation. We should have a clear idea. There was a dominant argument that there should be a seamless three-dimensional integration of warfare. At the same time, towards the end of 20th century, there was lots of information coming from the civilian information technologies about various aspects of jointness. Sloan in 2012 emphasized the importance of contemporary jointness, and contemporary strategic thought was completely influenced by that jointness. Nichols Act of 1986 argued that many revolutions in military warfare should be amalgamated. Now there are 10 revolutions. You can go through them, and he argued that through the Nichols Cold Water Act, these phenomena have been integrated. But it was again at the initial level of looking at jointness. In 1990s, military transformation, Mazza, Krepenwich and others argued the importance of technological innovation amalgamated with operational innovation and organizational innovation. This is the thing that I took into consideration in my contribution. Being a behavioral scientist for several years, it clicked my mind that we have to look at the organizational dimension in addition to the technological and operational dimensions. In the US Army War College, researcher Blank in 1996 argued that true RMA, revolutionary military affairs, should be taken into account very seriously by the researchers and strategists of military warfare. In 2001, during Afghanistan warfare or war, they took that into consideration to a significant extent. After the lessons that they got from the 2001 Afghanistan war and maybe 2003 Iraq war, they discussed, that means the transformation of Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment, ONA, took it very seriously. Looked at the importance of joining the three powers together. Of course, during our efforts to control LTTE in Sri Lanka, 2009 and before that, we took the importance of putting the three forces together very seriously. If you go further to the 2003 establishment of Office of Force Transformation in Pentagon, it further illustrates how they were looking at the importance of putting the three forces together. Changing nature of competition and cooperation can be looked at combination of concepts, capabilities, people, organizations, etc. So people and organizations were taken into account from a different perspective during the late 20th century and the early 21st century. 2003 Iraq War took some of these aspects into consideration. So there were overlapping concepts about the importance of putting the three forces or services together: MRT, RMA, parallel war, system of systems, military transformation, network-centric warfare. All these are related, overlapping concepts which emphasize the importance of jointness in warfare. So I developed a conceptual framework. My argument is that this joint operations or joint warfare should be based on a three-pronged framework. Technological innovation, which has been discussed in the literature, and also doctrinal information, which has been discussed in the literature. Organizational innovation, which has not been discussed in full, although there were some rudiments of arguments about the importance of organizational aspect. It has not been spelled out better in total. So my conceptual framework basically builds on 4 tenets. First one is Navy, Army, Space Forces must be fully interoperable in practical and technological terms. It has been discussed, but my conceptualization starts with that tenet. The second one is joint theory must deviate from the traditional military assigning which was confined to a single service. That means at least there should be 2 services together in order to make sure that the jointness is fruitful. Third one, the integration of service capabilities into a joint framework, sharing the knowledge and understanding of the system of systems should be there. And finally, the fourth tenet says, the mission of the battlefield should be assigned not according to service, but according to requirement, regardless of which service fulfills it. Now, in the literature, we have seen lots of discussions, critiques about the importance, but there were not much which emphasized the jointness. So my conceptual framework argues about 4 hypotheses. The hypotheses are, the conceptual framework is supported by the following hypotheses. 1, successful military transformation is dependent upon the interoperability. 2, successful military transformation is dependent upon the involvement and integration of multiple forces, 2 or more, in this case, in the battlefield. 3, successful military transformation is dependent upon the way mission is assigned. 4, successful military transformation is dependent upon the level of integration of services together. And finally, the transformation is based on cultural collaboration. When I say cultural collaboration, the beliefs, values, and assumptions of the 3 forces together should be similar, should be at least done with some emphasis on training and development and other measures. There are lots of supportive critics of my argument. They say the literature on organizational behavior argues that common values, beliefs, and assumptions of the group involved positively support the acculturation process among the participants. Therefore, in conclusion, I argue that these 5 tenets, including the collaborative culture, should be taken into account in terms of developing a fruitful jointness in the future when we are thinking of developing frameworks and models. And I can assure that if we can do some empirical study involving some higher echelons through some framework, we will be able to obtain supportive empirical data to prove this theoretical model is applicable to the real world setting. Thank you very much.